Welcome to another tutorial on tile maps. This time we're going to be looking at how large we paint our grids. So I've got three different grids painted here for a path. I've got our thin, our mid, and our thick. Let's look in Unity and see how this is going to play out. I've got rule tiles already set up for our mid, our thick, and our thin. And we're going to start with the thin one first. So here in the palette, I've got my thin one selected in my brush, and I'm going to paint on the thin layer. I've got three grids set up that I'll be using. So if I was to just bring my brush in the middle, I can see where I'm going to be painting, and that's going to be too thin for my path. I want it thicker in the camera view. One of the ways we can do this is by increasing the scale of the grid. So I've already done my calculations, and I know I have to go up by a factor of 9. And now I can see the grid better. However, you can see that I can't really position this where I want. I could move my grid over, and let's move it down. And therefore we've got that showing up. And now I can put that in the center, and I can start to paint my grid. Here's where the problem comes. In the view, I want another path to come down around here. But the second I go to paint something like that, you can see that it's starting to block what I'm doing. It's drawing this midline going between the two. And that's because these two grid pieces are right next to each other. And the rule tile tells it that if they have something here, draw the T on both of these. So this is not working out the way we want it to. That's why this tutorial is about the size that we paint our paths. If I went for a middle one, I'm going to hide that and bring out the middle grid. And the middle grid is brought up by a factor of 2 to give us the same. And if I start to draw here, we can see now that if I want it to be here, it can be here. So if I went there, that's the same thing that happened with the thin one. But now we've got a little bit better resolution on what we can do with our paths. Therefore, if I go to the thick one, and the thick one doesn't take any scaling. It's still at scale 1. And I come to paint here. And you can see we can get these paths even closer to each other. So even if I wanted to have two small pieces coming off like that, that'd be no problem whatsoever. So this is obviously the better one. It gives us better resolution. What would the downfall be? Well, the downfall would be that if we had any texture on this, so it's a path and we want some dirt texture or something. I've got some texture pieces here. So let's go to the thick rule tile, and I've got some texture on the horizontal. Let's lock that, thick, and I'm just going to drag that on there. Oops. These need to be 512, and put 512 here as well. Okay. So there we have some texture on our path, but you can see what's happening here. If we were using the thin one, we'd have a long area to do our texture on, and therefore we won't see as much repeating happening in the tile. But because we're doing it this way, we have this repeating that happens in the tile. Some people might not mind it, but if you want to get around that, we can go back to our rule tile, thick, lock it. And where we have this horizontal one, we're saying that we're outputting just a single image. I want to output a random image. So here I've got 1, let's do 2, and 3. And then if you play with the noise, that's going to select which random tile it's going to be using. And sometimes you get a nice sweet spot, but you just play around with it. This will help us break up our the repeating that we saw it before. And we can also just double up our layer. So if I went to a new layer here, and I went to, let's say we had flowers or rocks or something as one of our textures, we could paint over this, giving it extra randomness to our path. So you can get around having that randomness in your path. Right now mine looks kind of ridiculous because I've only got the randomness happening on the horizontal and not on the others. So normally when I do something like this, I would have the path being textured, but then I would do it using overlays to break up the randomness. Sorry, to break up the repeating and give it some randomness. Sometimes if I get a good asset pack, you will find more than one of each of these tiles so that you can add some randomness. But if you're painting your own, you might think, oh, well, I have to draw everything 3 times. So that is one of the downfalls of having it like this, but to be able to get more control, it's worth it. Next, I want to kind of go into taking all of these and doing them as an isometric. So I have already an action set up to convert everything to isometric. So I'm going to go and I believe it's only going to grab the images. I should be able to automate batch. Okay, this should be able to just, I hope it's going to grab the sprites and not the meta files from Unity. And I want this to be action 2. And hopefully, okay, it's grabbing the images. I don't think it'll do any errors. And I'm going to pause this while this calculates through all of the conversions, and it's just converting these to isometric as I'd shown in the last video. Okay, we've got everything converted. Let's just get rid of everything that we've done so far. Delete. And because we're going to be doing this as isometric now, so unlock that. And get rid of these. And we've got to create our isometric. Oops. No, don't do that. So our isometric rule tile, and we'll be using the thick version obviously for this. And let's lock that. We always start with the cross, or at least I always start with the cross. And we can see that we want in those directions. I'm going to build this up, so I'm going to pause this and get back when it's finished. Okay, so the isometric has been completed. And I'm going to just drag this into our new isometric palette. It should drag in. I do not know. What is this? Oh, I was dragging the wrong thing in. Sorry. Drag this into here, and there we go. Let's paint with this a little bit. There we've got our grid. Let's just do a new one. And tile map, isometric. Grab that. And here we've got our path with the better resolution that we weren't able to get with the thin one. Alright. And I could also make this a little bit bigger if I want to. Oops. 2 by 2. There it is. Okay. When I zoom in, we can see So this is something that we noticed in the last tutorial where um, we had this little splitting and we were changing the cell gap to be able to get rid of that. Because this is isometric, if I was to go and bring in, let's say I did one of these as normal. So 512 by 512, and I'm going to change my brush to my normal brush. And let's just paint. Right. If I had something like this, when we go to the edges, it's not like I can go and carry on anything here to be able to clean up that gap because we're at the edge of the image. When we did the conversion from this into isometric, when we did all the calculations, something went and put a little gap, like maybe just a pixel out or something. And I've got something that I created, which was just a full square filled in. And I told that full square. So here, if I go and paint, we can still see we're getting that gap. It's somewhere up here. There it is. We're still getting that gap. This is how we're going to fix that. I'm going to take one of those. Let's take one of the horizontals as an example. Let's go to thick and grab okay, vertical. And I'm also going to open that square that I did. So full. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it in here. Oops. Copy. Paste. There it is. And if I go and say select pixels, let's zoom in. I'm grabbing these pixels and you can see where like the anti-aliasing is. So I want to be able to go over the border. Now we weren't able to do that when we were using the regular square tiles. So I can now come and take my brush and let's just go over by a little bit, and I can just do it for a little noise so that it's kind of random. So I'm just going to paint some stuff like this. And that's going to be the overlap. So on all of our tiles, wherever we have two areas that are going to butt up and meet, we can do something like this. I'm going to save it. Okay, let's go back to our path here. And now we can see there's no more gaps. So all I had to do is anywhere that I would see, like on the T junction, I would paint this area, and this area just to have a little overlap. So this, which T is this? Let's find that T. File, open T. That's T1. So I can come in here, zoom, and I'm just going to do so you could do this, or you could just expand those edges by maybe 1 pixel or 2 pixels. If you're doing a path, something that's very organic, then this is why I just do this with a kind of a noisy kind of thing. And save that. And if you go back here, that T has now been cleaned up. So that is usually how I would go and clean up these gaps. In the first tutorial, I showed doing a cell gap, which kind of works, but it kind of offsets them in a way that isn't natural. Just go and clean up the drawings is the easiest way to do it. I should have done that in the first tutorial. That will be it for some tips on what I had shown from before. So let's go and see if I cleaned up this guy here. That would be the full. And just clean up these edges here. Save. Oh, yeah, I should only done, like, this is a bad case because it's all outside edges. The inside edges look great. We've gotten rid of that. It's just, how can you tell what an outside edge is on a flat grid? That is it for this tutorial, and I will see you in another tutorial. Thank you. Have a good one.